Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something that is not a dinosaur at all, but it is a very cool model. We have another Creature Preacher model to take a look at, and this continues to show you why Creature Preacher is one of my favorite sculptors out there and favorite artists out there, because he continues to release such crazy cool stuff. And if you needed more proof of the variety that Creature Preacher creates and releases, I really feel like this is the model that you need to check out, because this is actually the sleeping dragon from the show Monsters. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the show Monsters, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you were, because it's not an incredibly popular show, but it is a really cool show. It's something that I love. I have the full DVD series, that I've watched quite a few times, and I've always been a big fan of that show. But in Season 1, Episode 8, there is a sleeping dragon in the episode, again, which is exactly what we are looking at. And I really feel like Creature Preacher nailed it. Like, not only did he create this to look pretty much exactly like the, sleeping dragon looks in that episode, but he also gave it a base, and that's super cool, because this is the very first time that we've really had a base with a Creature Preacher release, so that makes it even cooler and even more monumental. But if you are familiar with the episode of Monsters where this creature was shown off, you might already have a pretty good idea of what the creature looks like. And you can see, again, he's really captured the likeness of this perfectly and just given us such a really cool model. Very cool visual of it looking at you, almost stares right into your soul. It's so creepy. But again, this was actually a series that aired in the 80s, I believe was when it originated. I actually think this one, the episode that this airs was in December of 1988, I think it was, potentially. I'm pretty sure. We'll have to check, but I'm pretty sure that's when this episode aired. But you can see, again, it looks really cool, and the addition of the base just creates an even more amazing visual for this model. So really excited to have something like this yet again. Creature Preacher reaching out into the obscure and bringing a model to my collection that I never in a bajillion years would have ever expected to own. So let's go ahead and jump to a closer look at it right now. So as I was saying, you can now see a much better visual of our sleeping dragon just staring you down, and man, is that ever one of the absolute creepiest, most eerie images I've ever seen. That is horrifying in the best possible way. Just showing you again how good of a model this really is. Can't even get over how creepy it looks when it stares at me, but Creature Preacher did a phenomenal job on this. You can see that the skin texture looks really nice, and on top of that, he's really captured the overall appearance of the sleeping dragon to perfection. Honestly, if you have the series on DVD, go rewatch the episode, or even, I think maybe it's on YouTube. I actually think there are some episodes of this show on YouTube, so you could probably search the episode out on YouTube and check it out there, and you'll really see again that he's captured the likeness of the sleeping dragon really nicely here. But you can see the nostrils sculpted out here on the tip of the snout. Again, the eyes are sculpted really nicely. The eyes are also painted really nicely, and they have a gorgeous gloss coat to them. You can see the gloss coat shining so that the eyes look very realistic and lifelike. On top of that, you can see the mouth is sculpted in a closed position, and you can see the teeth are all sculpted there where you can see them there as the mouth. Even though it's closed, you can still see the teeth. They're all painted with like some dirty browns and like kind of like, you could see variations of off-whites and stuff showing up, or yellows and everything in there. Well, a good bit of color variation to them. But on top of that, he's also given it a really nice gloss coat where it has kind of that saliva-like look and has that realistic shine that you would, see on teeth. So he's done a very good job as far as that goes. You can also see a good bit of color variation to the model, as there are all sorts of variation of color as you move through. You can see lighter and darker tones. You've got reddish tones and everything all over the place on this. I can even see like some slight variations of purples and stuff showing up, but you have that lighter tone that he appears to have dry brushed over on the lower jaw, which also looks really nice. And you can see the throat here of our sleeping dragon also looks really well done. As you lead back here to the back of the head, you continue to see that very interesting, very eerie sort of a look. This sleeping dragon always creeped me out in the episode, and I feel like the model here by Creature Preacher is doing the exact same thing. And you can see again, the paintwork looks great. There is just so much variation, so much really subtle variation of color to this, just showing you just how talented Creature Preacher is, not only when it comes to his sculpting skills, but also his actual painting skills. And as you lead down, you see that kind of cracked, sort of scaly look there. You could just see that kind of, style of skin texture that the sleeping dragon has, sculpted really nicely. As you move down, you again see just tons of variation of color, just continuing to show off how impressive his paintwork is. You've got the back here of the creature, as you see like the spinal column moving along the back, and you have more of that, again, kind of trademark, I would say, skin texture here to our sleeping dragon as you move down into the tail. And I'm not even going to attempt to begin explaining just how many variations of colors that there are here as we move down, but you can basically see all sorts of variations of reddish tones as well as blackish tones, and it looks like he's got like a kind of like a really nice dark wash to highlight all of the detail, but also just really make the entire thing have a very realistic and lifelike appearance. As you move down into the arms, you can see the muscle definition in the arms, and as you lead out into those hands, you've got some exceptionally creepy hands as you move out here. And again, you can just see so much color variation. There is just tons of it on this model. As you always find, honestly, on a Creature Preacher release, you don't get lazy paint apps on Creature Preacher models, that is for sure. And as you lead out into the fingers, you can also see that the nails are sculpted really nicely, and they're painted with a black, and they as well have kind of a glossy look to them. You can also see the chest and everything here, again, really nicely painted. You can see how beautiful of a job he's done when it comes to painting the areas of this model out to really highlight the details. Some more really nice dry brushing looks like he's been added here on the underside of the chest and everything leading into the stomach. And man, so impressive when it comes to both the sculpt and paint. It is just incredible how cool this model is. As you lead down into the legs, you can see the musculature here of the legs. Again, as you lead down, you can definitely see more of that in the calf right there. And you've also got the feet sculpted really nicely, the toes sculpted nicely, and again, the nails as well, and they are painted with a black. And you can even see like some blood that's been dripped down here onto the ground of the base, which looks really cool. And the base itself has a very cool kind of an earthy sort of a texture to it, which looks really good. And he's also added a ton of paint, variation and color to this area as well down here on the base, just showing you again that Creature Preacher really does his best to give you the best possible product, the most bang for your buck, and one of the most impressive models that you would have in your collection. You can even see the claw hanging off of the back of the foot. So when it comes to the sleeping dragon from Monsters, I honestly never would have expected to own a model of it. I definitely wouldn't have expected to own a model that is just so good. So Creature Preacher, again, knocking this out of the park and delivering one of the coolest, most obscure models I could ever imagine. Now, as far as a size goes, you're not going to have much in the way of a length or anything, but you can see it does have a very impressive size. Definitely, as always, quite sizable, as Creature Preacher usually releases pretty big models, and this is definitely another one of those. We can check a width here on the base. You're looking at about 6¼ inches or around 16 centimeters. And if we go for a width this way, you're looking at about 7½ inches or 19 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of our sleeping dragon, even though it's not right next to it to get a perfect measurement, I would say it's probably around 8¼ to 8½ inches or around the 21 centimeter mark, somewhere in that vicinity. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our sleeping dragon from Creature Preacher. And you can see that it has a pretty darn good size to it, just like I told you guys. It definitely has an impressive size, and with the addition of the base, it stands even taller than, your average Creature Preacher model would. So that's a really cool touch. I love the base. I love the addition of that base. Really helps to create an even cooler display for this model. But if you happen to have one of these figures here, this should help to give you a pretty good idea of the size. And then for another comparison, just to continue to give you an idea of the size, we've got a Mattel Dilophosaurus and Velociraptor here, just to step in to give you one more comparison. We've also got ourselves a Land That Time Forgot Ceratosaurus standing here next to our Sleeping Dragon from Monsters, again to show you that even though, you know, the Ceratosaurus overall is definitely a bit larger, especially when it comes to body mass, the Sleeping Dragon does stand a little bit taller thanks to the base. And then for one final comparison, because this is the figure that started it all for me when it comes to Creature Preacher, we have the Crater Lake Monster here next to our Sleeping Dragon, just to iron out one final size comparison if you happen to have the Crater Lake Monster. So this brand new Creature Preacher Monsters Sleeping Dragon is fantastic. And again, I just cannot even begin to tell you guys how much I love the fact that Creature Preacher creates so much stuff that is so different from each other, so much variety. Like, he just is impressive beyond belief, because we've got, you know, like dinosaurs, of course. We've got lots of movie monster style dinosaurs. We also have kaiju. We also have film versions of like marine reptiles, of course. We've had a few of those. And we also have things like this, where we have a monster taken from a very obscure TV show, Monsters, and, you know, brought here in model form. Obviously, Creature Preacher creates the stuff that he grew up loving, and it seems as though we are very, very similar when it comes to our loves, because it's also the same stuff that I love, because I love the Monsters TV show, and I'm actually a pretty big fan of anything horror or sci-fi related. It's just, of course, kind of goes almost hand in hand with dinosaurs and film dinosaurs and stuff, especially if you are a fan of films like Carnosaur and stuff like that. Dinosaur movies like that are kind of what drew me to horror movies, I think, in the first place, because there's a strong horror element to those. So I also, you know, grew up enjoying the show Monsters, and specifically, of course, being a fan of dinosaurs, I always loved the Sleeping Dragon because it's kind of almost dinosaur-ish, sort of. So having a model of that is just incredibly cool, and he's done such a good job on it. Like, the sculpt is incredible. Maybe some of the nicest looking skin texture and stuff that I've ever actually seen from Creature Preacher. Really impressive stuff as far as the actual sculpt goes. And again, the screen accuracy is so on point. He really did a very good job of replicating what you see in the show in that episode and bringing it to life here in model form. On top of that, his paintwork is so good. There's just so much variation of color, as you always find when it comes to Creature Preacher, and it just looks as incredibly lifelike as it gets, again, with so many different tones of color, just giving it that super, super lifelike look. He's also added some really nice elements of realism with the gloss coat on the eyes, the gloss coat on the teeth, the nails, and he's added that really cool blood effect there down on the base, which I think is extremely cool. A really nice little subtle touch to the model that I think just adds a lot to it, and definitely amps up the overall visual of the model quite nicely. So as a whole, another fantastic Creature Preacher release, and definitely another model that I really recommend picking up. So if you are interested in grabbing this, I will include a link in the description to the Etsy shop of Creature Preacher, where you can grab this as well as many other models on there right now. So make sure you check that link, go grab yourself some Creature Preacher today, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.